Ever since the fall of hardline communism in Moscow in 1991, there have been numerous missionary outreaches to the former Soviet Union. It's been estimated that church membership has increased by 400% in the past 10 years. Evangelistic crusades have been held, churches have been planted, and millions of Bibles and pieces of Christian literature have been distributed. Millions of people have been saved by the awesome power of God. During the 1990s, it was not unusual to see hundreds and even thousands of people added to the church in a short period of time. Today, most of the new believers in the former Soviet Union are young people, and there is a need for ongoing discipleship. In 1991, the Russian-language newspaper Predvestnik, the Forerunner, was founded. Since that time, over 20 issues and almost 500,000 copies have been distributed. Many young people received the gospel message, together with articles teaching a total biblical world and life view on a variety of topics, ranging from creation versus evolution, to economics, education, politics, the arts and media, history, world and national events, and the occult and New Age influences in modern culture. We publish articles dealing with Marxism and exposing anti-Christian philosophies, giving information on cults, and also what is happening in the church throughout the world. Predvestnik reaches many regions in the former Soviet Republic. The newspaper is distributed throughout Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, the Baltic states, Moldova, Georgia, Armenia, the Caucasus region, including Chechnya, and the Central Asian republics of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzia, and Uzbekistan. I finally settled on two directors, Alexei Solopatov and Roman Medved. Both were computer science students at Kiev Polytechnical Institute in Ukraine. Roman also had an aptitude for languages and translations. 3 months later, in July 1991, I traveled to Ukraine after I had raised the financial support to produce our first newspaper. I brought in computer equipment and software, publishing supplies, and the money we needed for the first press run. By August, the first press run was ready, and we used a printing house in Moscow to do the job. On the very day we were scheduled to print, the infamous coup led by communist hardliners occurred, and Boris Yeltsin emerged as the new leader of Russia. The very next day after the coup failed, the first issue of Predvestnik was printed. We soon were able to distribute 100,000 copies of the Russian-language Forerunner all throughout the newly established republics of the former Soviet Union. So it truly was a forerunner. It represented the end of an old order and the dawning of a new day.
In the beginning of 1991, me and a group of young people from our church attended a conference organized by Christian Youth International in Moscow, and we met Jay Rogers, who was a managing editor of the Forerunner Christian newspaper in the United States. So he provided both equipment and finances for printing of this publication in Russia. I truly believe that it was a call of God for us to do that, and I know for sure that there is no way that such a young team of young people can do such a publication unless God really wanted us to do that and called to do that. For instance, to put it in a simple way, by the time we started a newspaper, Predvestnik, we were real young. I was 17 years old, and when I wanted to come to government office and get a registration paper for newspaper, because I have to do that in this country, I wasn't able to do that because I wasn't mature enough. I had to be 18 years old to do that. And there are many things like that, but in a short word to say that it's like we were completely untrained. We've never done that before. We had no equipment and we had no experience. So, and all of a sudden we produced real good publication that touched hundreds of thousands of people, and I believe there is no way to do it unless God is behind that. As you might know, the former Soviet Union has 11 time zones and it's 15,000 kilometers, which is almost 10,000 miles across from east to west, which is huge area to even travel. So we distributed our newspaper both in such far regions as Vladivostok, Khabarovsk, Pacific area, Siberia, northern parts, and some remote area. Also, we found a very interesting effect that in the meantime newspaper began to distribute itself, which means that people were taking and giving it from hand to hand and reading from cover to cover up to dust. Like sometimes we receive letters from a region, a city or village that we even never knew of, and for sure we never sent our publication there, but like in a month we received like very good responses about people being excited reading this, something that we printed. I think newspaper is very important because it can go where no preacher can go. Places where war takes place, like Chechnya, or places where there are just a few Christian missionaries like Siberia or Far East. And it does something that sometimes man is not able to do. And it lasts also for some time, so in this country newspaper is something just more than a publication. Sometimes, as I mentioned before, people can read and give it to his or her neighbor. We did send some copies to the church located right in the capital city of Chechnya, Grozny. I also remember myself receiving letters from such remote places like Siberia, or one time I received even a letter from a prisoner who was converted in his prison cell, the person who received death sentence, and he was writing to us probably a few days ago before execution. At the beginning of Predvestnik, we had a church in Almaty, which is capital city of Kazakhstan, and every issue we took 5,000 copies and sent them to Almaty. And people there were real good workers and co-workers. They distributed those copies throughout the Asian region, both Kazakhstan and also some Asian republics that are bordering Kazakhstan, like Uzbekistan and Tajikistan. And that's how we got some distributors and churches to receive Predvestnik there. I heard an opinion that that region is like a gate to the whole Muslim world. So once you evangelize the countries that were part of the former Soviet Union and are not real fundamentalistic in terms of Islam, then you have like a gate to enter other fundamentalistic countries like Iraq and Iran. It became more expensive and more complicated to run publication here. We decided to concentrate on something different. In particular, recent years, instead of one big country, now we have 15 separated republics with their own borders and laws and regulations and custom fees. So you can't really run publications on a more or less periodical basis and ship it for such a spread area without having problems with the time and terms and deadlines. So we decided to continue our printing and publication ministry and concentrate more on books. And for instance, we just printed a book called Why Creeds and Confession by J. Rogers, and it's over 200 pages book. Costed us only 85 cents, which is possible to sell it at this cost and reinvest money into ministry again and publish something different.